Zane slammed the door to their shared apartment in Chicago after a grueling day at the marketing firm. His tie loosened and briefcase heavy in hand. What he saw next stopped him cold. Alexander, his best friend and roommate of 5 years, locked in a passionate kiss with a tall, dark-haired stranger on the living room couch. Their bodies close in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. The keys slipped from Zane's fingers and clattered to the floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Alexander pulled back, eyes wide with shock, while the stranger muttered something awkward and grabbed his jacket, slipping out the door without another word. Zane stood there, heart hammering, the room spinning as a wave of confusion crashed over him. This was Alexander, his loyal, funny, always there through thick and thin Alexander, who had helped him through breakups with girlfriends, late-night study sessions in college, and even the death of Zane's grandfather 2 years ago. How could this be happening? Zane's mind raced back to their first meeting at the University of Illinois, 2 freshmen from different worlds bonding over bad dorm food and shared dreams of making it in the big city. Alexander had always been the artistic one, sketching in notebooks while Zane chased straight-A grades and internships. They moved to Chicago together after graduation, splitting rent on this cozy Lincoln Park apartment with its exposed brick walls and big windows overlooking the park. Zane had dated a string of women over the years, bringing them home for dinners where Alexander played the perfect wingman. Never once had he suspected anything like this. Or had he? A nagging voice in the back of his head whispered about those lingering hugs after tough days. The way Alexander's laugh made Zane's chest feel lighter than it should. But no, he told himself firmly, he was straight. This had to be some kind of mistake. What the hell, Alex? Zane finally managed, his voice cracking as he stepped forward, fists clenched at his sides. Alexander ran a hand through his light brown hair, looking smaller than usual in his paint-splattered shirt from the studio job he loved. Zane, I didn't expect you back so early. I can explain. But Zane didn't want explanations right then. The betrayal stung deeper than he could process. His best friend hiding something this huge, making him feel like an outsider in their own home. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out into the chilly evening air, the city lights blurring as he walked aimlessly toward the lakefront. At a quiet bar near the water, he ordered a beer and stared at the foam, replaying the kiss over and over. Why did it hurt so much? Was it just the shock of the secret or something more he refused to name? The weight of it pressed on his chest, making every breath feel like a struggle. Back at the apartment later that night, he avoided Alexander's worried glances, locking himself in his room with the door shut tight. Sleep didn't come easy, filled instead with fragmented dreams of laughter turning to silence, and the fear that nothing would ever be the same. By morning, the apartment felt smaller, the easy camaraderie they'd built over years now laced with tension that Zane couldn't shake. He knew they had to talk, but the words stuck in his throat like broken glass. Little did he realize this moment was only the beginning of a storm that would force him to question every part of the life he'd carefully constructed. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the kitchen blinds as Zane poured coffee with hands that still trembled slightly from the night before. Alexander sat at the small table, nursing his own mug, his usual easy smile replaced by lines of exhaustion around his eyes. "We need to talk about it, Zane. Please don't shut me out," Alexander said quietly, setting his cup down with a soft clink. Zane leaned against the counter, arms crossed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Talk about what? That I walked in on you making out with some guy like it's no big deal? How long have you been hiding this from me? Alex? 5 years of living together, and you never said a word." Alexander's face flushed, but he met Zane's gaze without flinching. "It's not like I planned it this way. I've known since high school, but telling you terrified me. You're my best friend. I didn't want to lose that. The guy last night was just a date from an app, nothing serious. But yeah, I'm gay, Zane. Always have been." The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Zane felt a twist in his gut. Not just anger, but a confusing swirl of relief mixed with something sharper, like jealousy he had no right to feel. He thought of all the times he'd complained about his failed dates with women, and Alexander had listened without judgment. Had Alexander been hiding feelings too? Zane pushed the thought away hard. I get it, okay? But it feels like a lie. Our whole friendship built on half-truths. They argued for an hour, voices rising then falling as old memories surfaced. Road trips to Michigan, holiday dinners where Alexander fit right in with Zane's family like a brother. Zane tried to act normal the rest of the day, heading to work where he buried himself in client pitches and spreadsheets. But focus slipped. During a meeting, his mind drifted to Alexander's confession, wondering why the image of that kiss burned so brightly. To prove something to himself, Zane texted a female coworker, Sarah, and set up a casual dinner for that evening. She was smart, funny, and had been hinting interest for months. The date started well at a trendy Italian spot downtown, laughter flowing over pasta and wine. But when Sarah leaned in for a goodnight kiss outside her building, Zane pulled back, mumbling an excuse about an early meeting. Alone in the cab home, he stared at his reflection in the window, the city lights streaking past like accusations. Back at the apartment, Alexander was sketching at the table, the air thick with unspoken words. "How was your date?" Alexander asked softly, not looking up. Zane shrugged, the lie tasting bitter. Fine. But it wasn't fine. That night, as he lay in bed, fragments of college parties replayed. Alexander always the designated driver, never pairing off with girls like the rest of them. Zane tossed and turned, the apartment creaking with familiar sounds that now felt foreign. A call from his parents the next day added another layer of pressure. They were coming to visit from their small Indiana town in 2 weeks for his birthday. "Can't wait to see you boys," his mom said cheerfully. Zane forced a laugh, hanging up with a knot in his stomach. How could he face them now with everything unraveling? The misunderstanding grew when Zane spotted Alexander chatting with the same stranger from the other night outside the building later that evening. Jealousy flared unexpectedly, sharp and uninvited, leaving Zane to question if the real deception wasn't Alexander's secret at all, but the walls he'd built around his own heart. Zane's failed date with Sarah lingered like a bad aftertaste, her texts going unanswered as he threw himself into work deadlines to avoid the growing silence at home. Alexander kept his distance too, coming home late from the art studio and retreating to his room with quiet respect. But the dreams came anyway, vivid, unsettling visions of shared laughter turning into something deeper, Alexander's hand brushing his in ways that woke Zane sweating and confused. One afternoon at the office, staring at a blank presentation slide, Zane admitted to himself for the first time that the kiss he'd witnessed wasn't just shocking. It had cracked open a door he'd slammed shut years ago. College flashbacks hit hard. Parties where guys flirted with Alexander openly, and Zane had laughed it off, claiming it was cool, while feeling an odd protectiveness. Society's whispers from their conservative upbringing, jokes in locker rooms, sermons at family church, had taught him to bury any doubt. Now it all rushed back, leaving him dizzy. That evening, tension boiled over when Zane returned home to find Alexander laughing on the phone with the stranger again. "Seriously, Alex? Him again?" Zane snapped, dropping his bag louder than necessary. Alexander ended the call, confusion turning to hurt. "He's just a friend now, Zane. Not that it's your business, but yeah, I went out with him once. You stormed out before we could finish talking. What do you want from me? Permission to live my life." The argument escalated into raw territory, voices echoing off the brick walls as Zane accused Alexander of betraying their bond by hiding who he was. "You think this is easy for me?" Alexander shot back, eyes glistening. "Watching you date women, pretending everything's normal while He stopped, biting his lip. Zane's breath caught, the unfinished sentence hanging like smoke. In the quiet that followed, they sat on the couch, the same one from that night, talking deeper than ever. Alexander shared stories of quiet struggles, coming out to his own family in California and the freedom it brought despite the pain. Zane listened, really listened, for the first time, his own walls cracking as he confessed the confusion gnawing at him. "I don't know what I am anymore," he admitted softly, the words freeing and terrifying. They ended the night with a tentative truce, ordering takeout and watching an old movie like before, but the air felt charged with possibility. Work suffered the next day, Zane's boss noticed his distraction during a big client call, pulling him aside for a warning about focus. Friends from their college circle texted about a group hangout, but Zane declined, afraid the cracks would show. The family visit loomed closer, his mother's excited messages about home-cooked meals and catching up adding guilt. Zane paced the apartment alone one evening, staring at old photos on the fridge, him and Alexander grinning at a baseball game, arms slung around each other. The misunderstanding had cleared somewhat, but new questions swirled. Could their friendship survive this awakening? When Alexander returned from the studio with a small peace offering, a sketch of the two of them hiking last summer, Zane felt a warmth he couldn't deny. The path ahead looked uncertain, paved with societal stares and internal battles. But for the first time, Zane didn't want to run from it. Zane's parents arrived on a crisp Saturday morning, their rental car pulling up outside the apartment building with suitcases and familiar smiles. His dad, a retired factory worker with strong Midwest values, clapped him on the back while his mom hugged Alexander like a second son, chatting about the drive from Indiana. "You boys look thin. Good thing I brought my famous lasagna ingredients," she said, bustling into the kitchen. Zane forced enthusiasm, but the weight of secrets pressed down as they settled in for the weekend visit. Alexander played along seamlessly at first, helping with groceries and sharing laughs over old stories. But Zane caught the subtle tension in his friend's eyes during quiet moments. Family dinners turned into minefields. When his dad grumbled about those city liberals changing everything, Zane tensed, glancing at Alexander, whose jaw tightened imperceptibly. The hints came unexpectedly. A casual comment from his mom about Zane settling down with a nice girl like Sarah, whom he'd mentioned months ago. "Any special someone?" she asked innocently over coffee. Zane mumbled a non-answer, heat rising in his face as Alexander excused himself to the studio for an emergency project. That night, after his parents retired to the guest room, Zane found Alexander on the balcony overlooking the park, staring at the skyline. "This is killing me," Zane whispered, joining him, pretending like nothing's changed. Alexander nodded, voice low. "I know, but they're your family, Zane. I don't want to cause problems." Support came quietly from Alexander in small ways, deflecting conversations, helping cook to keep things light. But the crisis built when Zane's dad noticed the sketchbook left open, a drawing of two men walking hand in subtle lines. "What's this artsy stuff, Alex? You into that kind of thing now?" The question was innocent enough, but the undercurrent of disapproval hung heavy. Zane jumped in defensively, changing the subject to baseball, but the damage lingered. Alone later, Zane confronted his reflection in the bathroom mirror, the identity crisis peaking as he whispered admissions to himself about the feelings stirring for Alexander. Work added pressure too. A distracted presentation led to his boss suggesting time off, but Zane pushed through, the fear of losing stability mirroring his terror of losing Alexander. By the second day of the visit, Zane considered packing a bag and crashing at a friend's place to escape the charade, the sacrifice feeling necessary to protect everyone. Yet Alexander's steady presence, a late-night talk on the couch where he shared his own coming-out scars, gave Zane strength. "You don't have to figure it all out today," Alexander said gently. Family tensions simmered to a boil at breakfast when subtle questions about their close friendship arose, leaving Zane on the edge of truth. The visit ended with hugs and promises of another trip soon, but Zane felt changed, the internal storm raging louder than before. Walking his parents to their car, he realized the real choice wasn't hiding anymore. It was deciding what kind of man he wanted to be, consequences be damned. The apartment felt emptier after his parents left, the silence amplifying every unresolved emotion as Zane paced the living room. Work had become a battlefield. His distraction from the family visit and growing feelings led to a missed deadline, forcing a tense meeting with his boss who warned of performance reviews. "Get your head straight, Zane," the man said, unaware of the irony. Zane nodded numbly, but inside, the confrontation with Alexander loomed inevitable. That evening, he cornered his roommate in the kitchen after dinner, voice edged with frustration. "All this time, Alex, you knew how I felt deep down, didn't you? The hints, the closeness. Why didn't you say something sooner? It feels like you deceived me by letting me believe we were just brothers. Alexander set down the dish towel, eyes steady but pained. Because I loved our friendship too much to risk it. And yeah, I had feelings, Zane. But I saw you chasing what everyone expected, girls, the straight life. I wasn't going to push. The emotional breakdown followed, tears unexpected as Zane sank onto a chair, admitting the truth aloud for the first time. I'm scared. Family, work, everything. But I can't pretend anymore. I think. I love you, Alex. Not just as a friend. The words hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Alexander's response was quiet at first, then a mutual admission that lifted years of weight. I've loved you since college, Zane. But love means facing the consequences together. Fear of fallout gripped them both. Societal stares on the street, potential family rejection, career whispers in conservative circles. The sacrifice moment came when Alexander offered to move out temporarily, giving Zane space to sort his identity without pressure. I won't be the reason you lose everything, he said, packing a small bag with shaking hands. Zane stopped him at the door, pulling him into a hug that felt like coming home. Don't go. We're in this together. They spent the night talking through plans. A low-key dinner with close friends to test the waters, therapy sessions Zane booked for support, and small steps like holding hands privately. The high tension eased into tentative hope, but challenges persisted. A coworker noticing Zane's changed demeanor and asking pointed questions, forcing him to dodge while building courage. Alexander's quiet strength shone through, supporting without pushing, their bond deepening through shared vulnerabilities. Zane's internal crisis peaked in a solo walk along the lake, wind whipping as he reflected on the betrayal that started it all and the growth it sparked. By week's end, they faced a crossroads. Hide forever or step into the light. The decision to commit felt like freedom, though the road ahead promised more tests. In the quiet moments, Zane marveled at how one shocking night had reshaped his entire world, turning deception into the catalyst for authentic living. The family dinner Zane organized back home in Indiana marked the turning point. His parents' modest house filled with the smell of home cooking and the weight of unspoken truths. Alexander sat beside him at the table, their knees brushing under the cloth in silent solidarity as conversation flowed from weather to work. But Zane felt the moment building, his heart pounding with the decision he'd made. When his dad brought up settling down again, Zane set his fork down, voice steady despite the tremor. Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. Alexander and we're together, not just friends. I'm gay, and I've fallen in love with him. The room went still, forks pausing midair as shock rippled across their faces. His mom blinked rapidly, Dad's expression hardening with old prejudices surfacing in questions about choices and lifestyle. Alexander squeezed Dane's hand openly now, offering quiet strength as the confrontation unfolded. Tears, raised voices, painful silences filled with years of expectations crashing down. Zane stood his ground, sharing his journey from that apartment door moment to this, emphasizing growth over guilt. I hid for too long because I was scared of losing you. But hiding hurt more. Alexander spoke too, his calm words bridging gaps with stories of acceptance he'd found in his own family. Slowly, the storm passed into tentative understanding. His mom hugged them both through tears, whispering she'd always loved Alexander like a son, while his dad needed time but promised effort. Back in Chicago, Zane and Alexander celebrated quietly on their balcony, the city lights twinkling like new beginnings. Career stabilized as Zane confided in a trusted colleague, finding unexpected support that eased work pressures. Friends rallied at a group gathering, toasts to their courage sealing bonds stronger than before. The emotional journey complete, Zane reflected on sacrifices made and lessons learned. Misunderstandings cleared, betrayals transformed into trust, identity embraced fully. They walked hand in hand through the park one crisp evening, laughter returning as plans for a future together took shape. Trips, shared dreams, a life unhidden. The awakening had been painful but necessary, turning two men into partners navigating the world with open hearts. In the end, their story proved that love, when honest, could weather any storm society or family threw their way. True or false? The greatest deceptions we face are often the ones we tell ourselves about who we truly are, and facing them leads to the deepest freedom.